I'm told that Harry Maguire has taken a pay cut to sign this contract, so shows his commitment to Manchester United. He's been at the club for 8 years, and you can't question his resilience and his character.
You think of some of the things, stripped of the captaincy, been absolutely obliterated unfairly on social media, mentally robust, and I think that you need that in a squad. I think the fact that he's back in the mix with England, I think he deserves to go to the World Cup, in my opinion.
Let's have it right. He's the best defender. When he's playing as well as anyone in the league in that position.
I don't see an obvious candidate who's going to get it ahead of Michael Carrick. Thomas Tuchel, I think, would have been the one for me, but obviously he's committed himself to England. I don't think they're going to wait until after the World Cup for a Pochettino or an Ancelotti. It is Carrick's to lose.
Hello and welcome back to Inside Devils, the show that keeps you bang up to date with everything going on inside and outside of Old Trafford. Listen, it's been a long wait. We are still waiting for a game. It feels like an absolute eternity. And joining me, of course, to talk about this eternity and to preview the next game and talk about various other things Manchester United is Angelina Kelly, talkSPORT's Angelina Kelly, and talkSPORT's Alex Crook. He's joined us down the line.
AI Crook.
Again, AI Crookie. Yeah. So, are you ever going to show up?
At some point, I'll surprise you when you least.
He reckons he's. Isn't it that you're staying at home because you're a good luck charm because United haven't lost or something?
Absolutely. Yeah. Never mind the fella with a haircut trying to get all the publicity. This is my little stunt.
We've not even started.
Come on, Crookie. Come on, guys. Remember, this show is sponsored by BetMGM. You can download the app or visit betmgm.co.uk. 18+, gambleaware.org, and please gamble responsibly. Right at the top of the show, we have to talk of a contract renewal. We have to talk Mr. Harry Maguire. He has extended his time at Manchester United. He's signed a new deal. Crookie, let's start with you. What is the extension and how do you feel about this?
Well, first and foremost, I've got to make an apology, guys, because as you know, my another one of my stances have been not to mention our previous manager by name. That mask slipped on White and Jordan when this news
he forgot. He forgot.
Well, I didn't forget, but I sort of had to reference our former manager because, of course, Maguire was another one that he pretty much ignored at the start of the season. Certainly wasn't first choice, but I think it shows you how far he's come under Michael Carrick.
This was because he was doing like his official...
Yeah, when he's been a real journalist, like a real reporter.
Yeah, he was doing his official report on Harry Maguire, so he had to mention...
millions of people around the country in the UK. You can't just be like, he who shall not be named, he didn't play under. You have to say the real...
Jim and Simon would have had you on toast for that, wouldn't they? Go on.
They would. So the mask had to slip. But I think it tells you how far Maguire has come under Michael Carrick, that they were willing to extend the contract. It's until the end of next season. Initially, there is an extra year's option as well that could be triggered by both parties. And I'm told that Harry Maguire has taken a pay cut to sign this contract, so shows his commitment to Manchester United. And the one word I picked out from the statement was a comment from Jason Wilcox, the sporting director, talking about Maguire's resilience. He's been at the club for 8 years, and you can't question his resilience and his character, because there have been times when he's been booed and jeered, even by his own supporters, but he keeps bouncing back and on form with that pay cut. I think it's the right call.
Yeah, Ange, for you, we spoke about contract renewals, about asking Mrs. Casemiro to help Casemiro stay, and we'll talk about Kobe in a little bit, But Harry Maguire is one. Was he always one that you believed should get a contract, or do you think this is a good thing?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I've said this about players like De Ligt, players like Harry Maguire. Do I think that they are going to be the key to Man United, winning a Premier League title one day, for example? Probably not. But do I think that you need a player like Harry Maguire in the interim for now? 100%, because he is resilient. I mean, you think of some of the things, stripped of the captaincy, been absolutely obliterated unfairly on social media. Still, he's just so, mentally robust. And I think that you need that in a squad. I think the fact that he's back in the mix with England, I think he deserves to go to the World Cup, in my opinion. But
Thomas Tuchel's season was like sixth choice, so we've got to hold our breath on that.
Well, you know what? I
think
depending on John Stones and his injury issues, I think that I personally think he deserves to go. Maybe I'm being a bit Man United biased, but I just think he's never let England down as well. And he has got so many redeeming qualities, and people always like to focus on the things that he can't do, but there are a lot of things that he is very, very capable of doing. And it's not just, being slab-head and, scoring a goal, but I think defensively he does a lot as well. And you look at the options for Manchester United, they do still need a first-choice centre-back, in my opinion, especially on the left side, because I was reading an article and I was looking into it about Lisandro Martinez. Brilliant player, but isn't reliable. He's not. I think him and Aiden Heaven have played the same amount of league games this season. So I think long term, especially on the left side, we do need reinforcements. That's probably a different conversation. But I think for now, keeping Harry Maguire was of extreme importance. There's a lot of business that's got to happen in the summer, in my opinion. And I think at least knowing we have got Harry Maguire for another season is going to be important.
Yeah, Crookie, he's played every game under Michael Carrick, so that shows the type of trust that Carrick has in him. We'll talk about the manager search or lack of or thereabouts in a little bit, but does that show just how good Harry Maguire is at this current moment? Because we're talking about Manchester United in a positive light for the first time in so long, and the consistency we've been showing since Carrick has got there, and Harry Maguire has been a big part of that. Has he been rightly respected, unfairly treated? How do you see how Harry Maguire is spoken about now, also looking at his whole Man United career versus how he's talking about?
Well, I think it's been a love-hate relationship at times when it comes to Harry Maguire. I think he's probably a byproduct of the fact that he's been there for 8 years at a time when the club haven't been very successful. They've not won Premier League titles. He's won an FA Cup. He's won a League Cup. But this has not been a glorious phase in Manchester United's history. And at times, I've probably been as guilty as anyone of making Maguire one of the scapegoats for that. He was stripped of the captaincy by Erik ten Hag. But I think what we've seen under Michael Carrick, and even last season, actually, I commentated that incredible conclusion to the Lyon game when he got the winner. He is a leader without the armband. There's no question about that. Thomas Tuchel sees him as such because he's finished both the England games he played last month wearing that captain's armband. So I think you have to give him a lot of credit. And I guess if we could go back in time and parachute Maguire into a Sir Alex Ferguson Manchester United team, then we find out really how good he is. But when it comes to defending, when it comes to bringing the ball out from the back, I think he's got those attributes, and I think United have looked around and looked how much it would cost to replace him, particularly as Ange has already alluded to, when there are serious fitness doubts, certainly about Matthijs de Ligt and Martinez as well, and decided actually keeping this guy and renegotiating the wages is going to be much more beneficial than spending big money on the type of player that we need to replace him ahead of a summer when I think other areas of the team are in more need of repair.
Yeah, 100%. I think this is a way to tick multiple boxes at once. We have so many positions to fill. So much of our resources need to be spent in central midfield. We want a left back, a left winger, etc., etc. And you don't want to leave yourself short at centre back or have to reinvest. And also, just with Harry Maguire, let's have it right. He's the best defender. Like he's just when he's playing as well as anyone in the league in that position, realistically, this year when he's played. And he's playing as well as I can remember him playing in a Man United shirt. It's almost like a bit of like fine wine. The more he's got older and the more he's had the pressure taken off him with the armband, that was the best move for him. He has redeemed himself. And actually, I go into games calmer when he's there.
Yeah.
When you're thinking, God, set pieces and, in both boxes, he's a threat. It's not just a comical, like some of the things we get people laugh at me, but I'll stick him up front and get his big head on it. No. He's good at defending. He's not getting done on the counter attack where he's high up the pitch with no help.
Yeah.
He's strong. He's good at box defending. He's a threat in the other end. I just think actually this is just on merit. It's not even keep the old guy around so he can help teach the young ones in training. He won't play that. No, he can play. He can still play. So I agree. It's always been the right move for me to give Harry Maguire a new contract. Crookie, we're also hearing that Kobbie Mainoo is close to signing a new deal. What do you know about that? And do you think it's important that we do time down?
Yeah, I spoke to sources close to Kobbie on Tuesday morning because obviously Manchester United got everyone excited by floating the fact there was going to be a contract announcement with a post on social media. It was either going to be Maguire or Kobbie, and obviously it transpired to be Kobbie, to be Maguire. But I was told, that Kobbie Mainoo shouldn't be too far behind. And again, a player who was frozen out, wrongly, in my strong opinion, by the previous manager, has come back in. He's brought balance to the midfield.
We're going to need you to be more journalistic than that. We've got to hold you, just because it's not White and Jordan. Me and Andrew got high standards there. So if you could just mention him by name, please, Crook.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about. But he's got himself back in the England team. And, again, a big part of the future for the football club. I'm really fascinated by this midfield search because obviously there's a lot of noise around Elliot Anderson, Carlos Baliba, Adam Wharton, potentially Sandro Tonali. I think Cobby's form has clouded that search somewhat because what they don't want to do is bring in players who are going to knock his progress back and he finds himself back on the bench again. So really interesting to see what profile of player or players they actually settle on in the summer.
I think it's really interesting with Cobby. Really wanted to sign this new deal. We came within a whisker of losing him, so that's fantastic. He's top. He is really, really top. But I don't want us to confuse sort of Cobby must start every game and never leave the pitch. And I'm like, if we want a healthy midfield department to compete on all fronts, mate, that could be Baliba and Wharton starting this one, then Cobby and Wharton start that one, or Tonali and Cobby for these games, and then you do Tonali and Wharton, or what? Do you know what I mean? I'm not. Yeah. I think Cobby signs, but I don't want us to put him on that pedestal of like he can't leave the pitch. Like if he's on the bench, it's a problem.
Yeah, I get what you mean, and I think regarding Cobby Mainoo, a new deal is 100% the right decision. Would applaud it. He's still very, very young, and I don't want to criticise him too much because I think it's great that he came back into the England setup, but he made mistakes in that game. You're thinking about the tracking back with Matoma, etc. It didn't. I
was defending him there.
Yeah,
I think people are onto him there, man.
Well, I just think there were holes in his game that was quite evident in that, which shows you it's not a bad thing. Doesn't mean that he's a terrible player. I don't know if he'll get to the World Cup. It might end up being like maybe a James Garner versus Cobby Mainoo. One of them gets picked. I think it is a little bit late in the game, unfortunately for him. But that showed that there are flaws in his game, but that's okay because he's still a very young player. And I think that between Cobby, Bruno, Casemiro, like it's worked beautifully under Michael Carrick, and it's a shame that is coming to an end, but it is. And I think I agree with you guys. The type of profile that you're going to bring in, you don't want that to mean... So somebody like Tonali, you feel like they might be in direct competition. So in some ways, you think you don't want Cobby to then be benched all the time. But like you say, there will hopefully be enough games for there to be enough rotation. You look at someone like Elliot Anderson, who I think can be a 6, can be an 8, is that perfect kind of diverse profile for me personally. But it will be interesting to see who they go with. But the main thing is that I don't want... Not saying that I wouldn't want Tonali, but I don't want it to be he's got to start because he's a new sign that we've brought in. We've got to start him and Cobby gets benched. There has to be some kind of rotation.
I think with Casemiro leaving, if you sign Tonali, he starts next to Cobby. If you sign Elliot Anderson, he starts next to Cobby. Then we need another one. So whichever one that looks like is a different ball game. But I believe we're going to sign one A side because our starter is leaving the football club. Casemiro is going, and he is the starter. So. Alongside Cobby in Carrick's eyes. So I do believe that one of the midfielders we get will obviously by proxy have to start. The other midfielder we're going to get is probably going to replace Ugarte, who's on the bench already. So yeah, there might be a swapping of the guard, but I think as long as they're all good enough, we can get to a position where we don't really care who starts. It's for the player who's got the shirt.
Cobby can't play 50 games
Can't
a
play
season.
50 games
That's
a season.
it. But
Absolutely not. But we need to sign someone with legs. We need to find someone who can get about, which is why if you do get a Wharton next to Cobby, I'm not too sure about that. In most games, we need someone combative. You need someone who can cover a lot of grass, and then we work in small spaces. So, Cobby Mainoo, listen, we're all in agreement that he needs to get this new contract. Thank God that Ineos did sort that out, and hopefully we wait for official confirmation on that. And let's look forward to our next game of Finally in Action on Monday night. We still don't even play on the actual weekend. What a travesty. After how long we haven't played for, we should have been Saturday 12:30. Honestly, ridiculous. But we face our arch rivals Leeds at Old Trafford, Crookie. Leeds it's been a happy game for us since they've sort of been back in and around the Premier League, home and away. Really, we haven't really lost. I don't think we have lost to them actually, home or away. Since they've been back. But what are you thinking about this? Maguire will be missing for this. Lenny Yoro's sort of stepped in. He's doing okay now. Lisandro Martinez has gone on the training camp to Dublin. Hopefully he might be able to start, but he's been out a while. That might be a big ask. How are you looking to shape up in this one?
Yeah, I'm going to be there as a fan, actually. And I think the last time we played Leeds at Old Trafford, I seem to recall it ended in a 2-2 draw. I might be wrong about that. But you're right, our record against them since they came up has been pretty solid. We all remember that spectacular first day of the season victory at Old Trafford. Sort of welcome back to the big time that we dished out. So, yeah, looking forward to it. Should be a spicy atmosphere. I think the biggest issue is the fact it's been so long without a game. 3 weeks, as you say. Obviously, Leeds had a tough FA Cup game at the weekend, but they're going to be high in confidence, having got through to the semi-finals for the first time in a number of years. So I think it comes down to how sharp we are as a team, how much this training camp in Ireland gets the legs moving and the juices flowing. But it's a great opportunity, isn't it? With Chelsea playing Manchester City, you fancy City to go there and win. Liverpool at home to Fulham is not going to be a banker if Liverpool play as badly as they did in the FA Cup last weekend. So who knows? By the time we kick off on Monday night, both our rivals for a top 5 place could have lost, and this could be a real opportunity to cement ourselves in the Champions League position.
Yeah, I agree. I was looking at that a little while ago. Ange, for you, I mean, Leeds haven't scored in their last 4 league games, so the goals aren't flowing. But like Rookie did just mention, they did win on penalties to go to Wembley. Yeah. However, they scored 2. Were looking like they're going to cruise to victory and conceded 2 late goals, so essentially it was a draw, so still not great. But are you worried that the exuberance that they've got, that the feeling of going to Wembley can transpire into a difficult performance that we have to face?
I think that they'll obviously be on a high after that game, but they're also going to be tired after that game because you've had to go to extra time, you've had to go to penalties. Yes, they were the winning team at the end of it, but it's still a lot. It's still going to be physically, mentally draining, etc. But yeah, maybe that might mean that they're up for it. They also are not out of a relegation battle, so they also have it to a degree that is, in their minds as well. They're going to want to put on a good performance. They like to draw. I think they haven't won a league game since February, but I would like to think, even though Man United have had this very long break, I'm trying to look at that in a positive way of they should be ready for this. They should be more up for this than Leeds, because you've been sat there waiting for a game. This is the game. It's against Leeds, one of United's biggest rivals, historically. So it's at home. They need to be up for it. I mean, I think Anton Stack might be injured. I saw a picture on Twitter of a very swollen ankle, I think it was. I think Daniel Farker said that it could be ligament. So not to take glee in someone's injury, of course, but it is very good for Man United. He brings a lot of muscle in the midfield, good with set pieces, etc. So I guess that will be a positive. But yeah, I think it'll be an interesting game. I think that Leeds are very physical in midfield. That is something that they're going to have to be prepared for. But I don't think that we should read they're going to Wembley. Great, good for them. But we're Manchester United. We need to win this game.
This is a derby game. Yeah, rivalry game. We hate Leeds.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a northern derby, but it is a massive, massive game. So, and I think the fans will be up for it as well. Crookie, I'm sure, will be singing very loudly.
Right, now it's time for our bet builder with BetMGM. You can download the app, or you can head over to betmgm.co.uk. And what have you got for us? Leeds at home.
Right, so with the bet builder, I have gone for over 3.5 goals. Leeds have had some high scoring games against big teams this season. You got Chelsea 2-2 draw, 3-1 win, Man City 3-2 loss, Newcastle 4-3 loss, got pumped twice by Arsenal 5-0 and 4-0. So there's a potential for goals. So yeah, I'm going to go over 3.5 goals, over 6.5 total corners for Manchester United. So corners and set pieces I think have been pretty useful for us recently. Casemiro scored more goals from attacking set pieces than anyone else in the league this season. So I think that we'll rack up a few to sling into the box. So yeah, over 6.5 total corners and a goal in both halves, because if we're winning over 3.5 goals, then why not have a goal in both halves?
Yeah, don't see it as this all being in one half.
I think that Alex Crook will be going into half time very happy. So yeah, over 3.5 goals, over 6.5 total corners by Man United, and a goal in both halves. So Flex has had to dip out despite giving Alex Crook some grief about not being in the studio. Flex has now left the studio. He's got some serious Man United business to attend to, I'm sure. But you know what, Crook? We ain't ending this show yet. So we're going to get our money's worth out of you. We're going to talk about this new manager search because Wayne Rooney is 100% backing Carrick to get the job. 7 wins, 2 draws, 1 defeat. Do you subscribe to the idea that it is unwise to change direction at this point?
It's a bit like me backing Sam Matterface to get the job, isn't it? Because Rooney and Carrick are best mates. They go on holiday to Barbados together.
They were in Barbados for New Year's before we got the job. Yeah, exactly. So you got to take it with a little pinch of salt. Of course he's going to back his mate.
Yeah, listen, my stance on this has not really wavered. I still think it's too early at this moment in time. There are still 7 games to go. Yes, they're in a brilliant position under Michael Carrick to bring Champions League football back to Old Trafford. I think if he does that, and certainly if he can finish in the top 3, as we're on course to do, then he's got an incredible case to go and take to his paymasters. But I think they're right to keep their powder dry for now. I don't necessarily buy into the fact that it counts against him because of what happened with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, because I think the 2 individuals have to be treated in isolation. I did see you reposting a report, I think from ESPN, about Cesc Fabregas.
Oh, yeah, now, because you and Flex were fully like, no, never going to happen, forget that. You know, it's been rumoured.
I'd maintain that because I think if you're asking me, would you get rid of Michael Carrick and bring in an Arsenal legend in Fabregas who isn't proven in the Premier League in terms of management, then I don't think that would be a forward step. So at the moment, as much as I want to keep my powder dry and just want this winning run to continue, and then there'll be a decision to make, I don't see an obvious candidate who's going to get it ahead of Michael Carrick. You know, Thomas Tuchel, I think, would have been the one for me, but obviously he's committed himself to England. I don't think they're going to wait until after the World Cup for a Pochettino or an Ancelotti because they need to plan for next season. Carrick, as I understand it, is already part of those recruitment meetings and would have had a say on Maguire extending his contract and Kobbie Mainoo being offered a new deal. You look closer to home, Oliver Glasner, I don't think he's covered himself in glory at all this season at Crystal Palace, so I'm not having him instead of Michael Carrick. Is Marco Silva a step up? Yes, he's more experienced, but again, not really sure you can make the case for that. And Tony Iraola at Bournemouth, I've always subscribed to the opinion that I think he'd struggle to handle the real big personalities in the dressing room and the pressure that comes with being United manager. So I think it is Carrick's to lose. I don't think there's any question about that.
Yeah, I completely understand what you're saying there, and I think you look at the options, there aren't many attractive options. You have certain managers that are going to be at World Cups, which I think makes it very difficult for somebody to come in. Luis Enrique, I mean, we're yet to see what happens with Paris Saint-Germain in the Champions League.
I think he'll stay. I think it's pretty much... It's pretty much been reported over in France that he's going to do at least another year there. Yeah,
that wouldn't be surprising. And like you said, there's been nothing concrete that he would leave. It was just more a case of, if he was up for leaving, maybe he could be an option. But yeah, I agree with that. I think with the Fabregas situation, I do get what you're saying. I just think that he is a very interesting manager. I do see him maybe being in the Premier League at some point with a team.
Spend a lot of money at Como. They're just about the biggest net spenders in the division.
But it's starting to pay off. They're doing well, and I think he plays good football. I think that he speaks very well in general. The main thing for me is no Unai Emery, and I know I have had a lot of stick on social media about this, about people saying, oh, why not have Unai Emery? He's been great. People talking about his net spend. Being Manchester United manager is about a little bit more than net spend. I just don't really see him as the manager that could take Manchester United to that next level. I know that you and I have discussed it before on our Fiery Fridays podcast as well, Crook, but I just think for me, you do look at the options and you think, I guess if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And Michael Carrick seems to be the right person for the job at the moment. You do still want to hold off and you want to see how the season plays out, but, I think also for the powers that be, and this is not a slight on Michael Carrick's personality or anything like that, but he's not somebody that has come in and like ruffled feathers and caused drama. It seems like he will want to kind of work with the hierarchy, whereas you get somebody like a Thomas Tuchel, if he'd be available, a Luis Enrique, you don't know how they're going to work. You don't know if they're going to be like, yeah, you know what, I'm happy for the powers that be to make the decisions. Some people don't like that, so I think that'll be interesting. But regarding the uncertainty of who's in charge, does that affect the transfer planning, Crook?
A little bit, but I think the transfer planning is going to be based on what competition they're in anyway.
Doesn't matter who's in the dugout.
yeah, they're going to be a more attractive prospect to Elliot Anderson, for example, if they're in the Champions League as opposed to if they're in the Europa League. But I think once they have secured qualification for one of those European competitions, then they're going to have to make a decision. I don't think we're going to get until the end of the season still not knowing who the manager is going to be. There are 7 games to go. It's not beyond the realms of fantasy that in 5 games' time United could be guaranteed a top 5 finish, in which case the board are going to have to nail their colours to a mast in order to plan for next season. I thought it was interesting, and it's not really been picked up, but I mentioned it on the main talkSPORT a few days ago. Before he took over at Spurs, I've got it on good authority that Roberto De Zerbi sounded out Manchester United to see if he was a contender for the job, and he was told he wasn't. So that does tell you they do have some kind of plan in their minds about which direction they want to go in.
And I guess a certain standard to a degree, because no disrespect to Roberto De Zerbi, but he hasn't. He's did a good job at Brighton. I think overall people can poke holes in what happened at Marseille, but he did do good things. But he's not really won anything. And I think, again, that's where I look at someone like Unai Emery. Europa League, 100%, that is his competition. But when it comes to, if Manchester United want to win that title in 2028, the Premier League title on the 150th anniversary, you need somebody who's going to be able to do that. And people might argue, what's Michael Carrick done as well? But you're at least seeing things start to mesh versus bringing somebody in who is unproven when it comes to winning the big trophies. That is even more of a risk, because it's someone coming in who's got to get to know the players, figure out their style of play, which of these players are going to be useful or not, whereas you've kind of done that hard work with Michael Carrick already. So even if he hasn't lifted a Premier League trophy or won the Champions League or something, and also those managers are not that easy to come by, as I think other clubs will see that are looking for managers this summer, he's at least proven himself in this period. So the things that he's lacking in that sense, I guess, maybe aren't as worrying.
No, and actually you make a really good point about the sort of dearth of top-class managers out there. If Pep Guardiola leaves Manchester City, I think Enzo Maresca looks a shoe-in for that job. Other names in the frame include your pal Fabregas, maybe a Vincent Kompany or a Xabi Alonso. But yeah. Alonso's just been fired by Real Madrid. Fabregas isn't proven in the Premier League. Vincent Kompany stank the place out with Burnley in the Premier League. I know he's done a good job at Bayern Munich, but it's almost impossible to fail at Bayern Munich. And Maresca obviously fell out with Chelsea, and there are a lot of fans who weren't enamoured with his style of football anyway. So I think that tells you that there aren't loads of top quality managers lining up. And even if you're going to go for a Mauricio Pochettino, who I've been a big fan of, his CV is easy to pick holes in, certainly since he left Tottenham. So yeah, I think. Listen, I don't want to say Carrick's going to get the job by default, because that's massively disrespectful. But I think if he gets them into the Champions League, I think it's really hard to name a top quality candidate who's going to come in and do better. And they might look at Arsenal, what they've done under Mikel Arteta. I know they've not had a great week in terms of, or a great fortnight in terms of being dumped out 2 cup competitions. But he was a rookie when he took that job, obviously knew the football club, and you can't deny that at the very least he's made Arsenal relevant again, and he'll probably end their long wait for a Premier League title this season. So maybe that's the blueprint that Manchester United will follow. 2028 is fanciful in terms of winning the Premier League. I think there's a long way to go before we can be talked about as title contenders. Yeah,
it will be interesting to see what happens with the manager and what happens, I guess, across the summer with multiple different clubs. But I wanted to speak about Barcelona and Marcus Rashford, Crook, because Barcelona have the option to buy Marcus Rashford for €26 million this summer. There is also talk, because with Barcelona comes talk about their financial situation. What do you think is going to happen with Marcus Rashford? Would it be a disaster for Man United to let Rashford go? Does he have a future at Old Trafford, or is this the end and he will, whether it's loan or purchase, be a Barcelona player next season?
Well, I don't think he's got a future at Manchester United. That was made pretty clear to me when Michael Carrick came in. Despite the change of manager, the stance at boardroom level had not changed. They didn't see didn't see Rashford as part of the future. As you mentioned, he's been at Barcelona. I think if you watch him in highlights, he comes up with some spectacular goals. But you speak to people who watch Barcelona week in, week out, and they'll say, well, he's still not really a guaranteed starter, and he's not consistent enough to justify potentially the outlay, certainly in terms of wages, that it would cost to sign him full time. I've always felt the way this plays out is there's a bit of haggling to be done over the summer, and then he probably ends up staying at Barcelona for one more season on loan with an obligation to buy, as opposed to the option that's there at the moment, because you've mentioned it, Barcelona do seem to be constantly lurching from one financial crisis to the other. So I think they'll do all they can not to have to pay all that money up front this summer.
And also, I wanted to touch on Spanish journalist Alvaro Romero has tweeted the other day that Rashford off the ball is a massive issue for Barcelona. Generally speaking, he's making up a bang average season with a few screamers. So that kind of touches on what you were saying there, Crook, in that people that maybe aren't watching Barcelona for 90 minutes week in, week out, you might catch some highlights and think Rashford's looking good. Obviously, people are seeing him back with England. He's playing well for England overall, but maybe things at Barcelona, yeah, he's doing enough, but he's also in competition with some really big names. So is it really going as well as some people are making out, like he has been completely transformed and he needs to be back at Manchester United? Maybe this is more just Rashford's like getting back to being okay, but it's not like he's the same player that we all remember when he was at his peak.
No, and actually it doesn't surprise me that Alvaro is tweeting that, because that was one of the issues that we had as Manchester United fans. Yes, when he's in possession, he can do something exciting. You know, he's got pace. He obviously has got the eye for the spectacular goal, but he doesn't work hard enough off the ball, and he can often look like he's sort of sulking his way through matches. So Leopards don't change their spots, do they? I still think ultimately the best route for all concerned is a parting of the ways. He seems to be enjoying life in Barcelona, but he might have to get used to the fact that he's not going to be one of their main men when Lamine Yamal and
Rafinha,
the fella from Leeds, whose name escapes me,
Rafinha
are fit.
Yep.
He's not going to be first choice in the big games.
That's all we've got time for on another show of Inside Devils. Hopefully see you next week with 3 points. Remember, the show is sponsored by BetMGM. Download the app or visit betmgm.co.uk. 18+. Gambleaware.org. Please gamble responsibly. See you next week.